Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thoroughly Thriving, where talent meets strategy and innovation drives success. On today's episode, we will take a deep dive into the world of human capital solutions, explore the latest trends in recruitment, and share actionable insights to help businesses grow and thrive. Whether you're a seasoned executive, a budding entrepreneur, or just passionate about the future of work, you are in the right place. Well, let's get started on building the future one conversation at a time. Well, welcome to another episode of Thoroughly Thriving. Sean, I'm excited. I'm pumped for today's episode. For our listeners out there, we typically have guests on. We have thought leaders, we have titans, we have subject matter experts on. But it's also good for us to talk about a lot of the things that we've done before opening the doors of Thoroughly Thriving, what we're doing while the doors are open, and certainly what we're going to be doing as we expand and grow the business and really grow our community. And that's what I really focus on, is how we can grow our community and how we can serve our community, Sean. And as I reflect back, I think about a lot of the due diligence that we did before we opened the doors to the Thorough Group. And for those that aren't fully aware, Thorough Group, we're a human capital solutions firm that focuses in the life sciences markets. And we serve our clients and our candidates by providing them with great opportunities and great people. And we find when they intersect, there is true convergence in a good way. So, Sean, as I reflect back on our journey, I think about the pillars. I think about the foundation that we initially built. And that foundation was really fortified on our core values. And I remember sitting down with you and my wife, and we really sharpened the pencil. We thought about, what do we want to be known for when we're out of Thorough Group? What do we want Thorough Group to be known for, when this continues to grow and evolve? And so, to our community, over the next several months, we're going to be taking a deep dive into our core values, which are 5. And the first one we're going to talk about today, which is driven to excellence. I think it's important to do everything with excellence. Sean, I've been told how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so as we take a deeper dive into driven to excellence, I'm curious, given your great background, given your experience, given the skills that you've been able to build, cultivate, and develop, what does driven to excellence mean to you, Sean?
It's a great question, and I'm really excited actually about this episode as well. I think, as we continue to talk about thoroughly thriving and working through, we hope even some of these pillars for us that are our core values are really things that you as a listener could take a look at in your day-to-day work and really, filter a lot of things through that. I think core values on paper are just great words, but I think if they become a truly a foundation of how you run your business, how you operate professionally, and you filter every great decision through how does that fit with our core values? I know, Darren, we've made decisions to not move forward on really foundational things in the business over the last, few months since we launched because of the fact that it did not align with core values of who we are, both personally and professionally. And though it might have been a great idea, though it might have made us a lot of money, it does not align with who we are and what we do. And so I think when I think about being driven to excellence, excellence is not a one-time bar, but it's a journey of pursuit, right? And I think that being driven to excellence means that we are constantly and regularly reevaluating every process, every procedure, every step, even taking feedback from candidates and clients as well. I think that a lot of times firms in our space, will operate in a fast manner and say, this is the way that we work, and you either like it or you don't. And I think those firms are quickly finding in today's marketplace that you've got to be constantly evaluating. Now, there's some core tenets of excellence that you never wander away from. I think of things like a commitment to quality, that if you are constantly meeting or exceeding standard, you are pursuing excellence. That if you are ensuring that there's really a high level of attention to detail and precision in everything that you do, there's a real commitment to quality. I know in our industry, many of the greatest drugs and treatments on the market are there largely because of the fact that not only did they have a great idea in the lab or have a great idea, in research, but they were able to build an organization that had great quality behind it, consistency, repeatability, so that they could then take that to the patients in need consistently and know that they're going to gain the results they're looking for. So I think of things like commitment to quality. I think of things like continuously improving. I think as a driven to excellence means that you're on a journey, consistently pursuing it week in and week out, but that takes continuous improvement. You have to work from a place of having a growth mindset, really learning here's where we are and here's where we want to go. Where can we constantly be improving? You can never pursue excellence without constantly improving, but you also have to adapt to challenges and trends and innovations and things in the market. And so I think what might have worked for excellence last year or even earlier this year sometimes may not fit anymore. But, we need to be leaders who lead from the front that allow us to adapt to those challenges and evolve with the trends without foregoing our baseline of who we are organizationally from a quality perspective and the standards and expectations perspective, just because there are some trends that you could easily chase after. Those are some of my initial thoughts, but I know driven to excellence is a way that you lead every area of your life. Tell me a little bit about some of the core things for you when it comes to excellence and what you think about from that perspective.
Well, for our listeners that might be accessing this from an audible perspective, but not from a visual, no, one of our core values isn't flannel, even though both of us are wearing flannels today. Look, fall is here, Sean.
All
Fall
is
is
here.
here. It's pumpkin everything,
Yep.
which I do love. It gets me into that spirit.
Yep.
And then right around the corner, the holidays just start to come. But um, look, I'm going to answer your question, but I do want to address perhaps the 500-pound gorilla in the room. And I've estimated in my 20 plus years of being in the human capital solution space, and I've probably worked with closely up to probably 5,000 companies, which is a ton of companies. And I bring that number up, Sean, because I would say almost 100% of those companies have had core values. And some of them have been, driven to excellence or some iteration of that. Now, core values are great because you can put up on the wall. You can talk about them. But I'll tell you, my friend, what core values really mean to me and how this ties into driven to excellence. Look, core values is also what you ignore, what you tolerate. And I've seen a lot of companies in my 20 plus years tolerate quite a bit and ignore what they have on their walls, what they have on the t-shirt, right? What they talk about in their quarterly meetings. And I know that you and I are not looking to build a company like that. So for me, driven to excellence is about accountability, Sean. You know, accountability is key. Look, at this point, being less than a year into Thorough Group, it is paramount that we hold each other accountable and the people
Yep.
that we get to call business partners. All right.
Yep.
And what I really capture that as is something called peer to peer accountability. Okay. Because accountability from leadership can sustain an average team. Accountability, if there's a lack of accountability, well, that's going to lead to an underperforming team. But where the magic happens is when there's peer to peer accountability. When you're able to hold me accountable, right, to the things that I've agreed to, or anyone across the Thorough Group team. And the inverse of that is I'm able to speak into it and say, look, we made a commitment, right, to
Yep.
service this client in this form or fashion. We haven't held up our end of the deal. How are we going to make this right? And see, when we have peer to peer accountability, Sean, A byproduct, the residue, the dividend of that is excellence. It always is, right?
Yep.
When we're able to be proactive. So I love accountability. Let me reframe that a bit. Accountability does hurt when I'm called out, but I know that I have blind spots. And there's so many clients of ours that trust us that say, guys, Thorough Group, please, if we have some areas of opportunity that you know that we can refine, calibrate, and develop, let us know. How can we best capture and utilize talent within our organization or engage them further? Those are accountability opportunities. So I love that. I think accountability is synonymous with excellence. Sean,
Yeah.
as you thought about your career from working for Fortune 50 companies, right, to working with some of the best human capital solutions companies on the planet, um, how would you further define excellence? Are there any things that you've seen that hasn't worked in your career, right? And conversely, what are best practices that you've been able to implement that allow you to keep that proverbial foot on the gas pedal to helps
Yeah.
you continue to drive?
Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up, and from your last point on accountability, I'll answer your question, but I had a quick thought. There was a client we worked with recently that really stuck out to me as we were helping to do a deep dive into what their need looked like organizationally. You know, they started at one point, and we actually moved them over to a different place in terms of what they were actually needing organizationally, because we didn't just take an order. We didn't just say, okay, you need X, great, let's go find you X. We'll go find, here's the person. We really wanted to understand the entire ecosystem. And one of the things that I thought really stuck out to me, though, about this organization was one, that they really were willing to be flexible to work with someone on the outside because they had created a culture that stuck out to me. And I wrote it down in bold during our first meeting with them, where they said, we are focused culturally on accountability to one another, not just vertically related accountability. Meaning that I'm not just accountable to my boss, I'm not just accountable to the board, I'm not just, but that there was a circular accountability that basically said, no matter what it takes, we are desiring to raise the bar. We are desiring to run an effective and excellent organization. And that's only going to happen when we allow a culture of being accountable to one another. So they had SVPs who were informally accountable to senior managers and vice versa, because they looked at it as the holistic organization that if you're watching for my blind spots and I'm watching for your blind spots and we work together, it's going to drive us into that place of excellence. And so I think one that was a huge thing that stuck out to me, because it really asked me to look in the mirror. You know, where am I being accountable? You know, who am I allowing to speak into and to have room to call me when I need to be called out on something to be able to drive forward in greater excellence? You know, but when I think about other aspects, one of the greatest companies I worked for is famous for a concept of being customer obsessed. And, you know, when I think about excellence, if you can visually in your organization think about how do we have a customer centric focus on what it is that we're doing? How do we prioritize the needs and make sure that the needs of our clients and our customers are not just satisfied, but above beyond, and really building your relationships on your ability to deliver excellence, not just on your ability to deliver relationships. I know from my experience, I've worked with a lot of great clients over the years who've worked with amazing salespeople or amazing, you know, vendors in different aspects, and they thought they had a great relationship. But the relationship was built on things that crumble. It was built on light little small anecdotal, hey, look at that photo on your, you know, mantle back over there, or, you know, what about this? Or hey, I know someone who went to the same university. You know, it's like those are good connection points. But that's not building a customer centric focused organization that leads to when everything that you do is viewed through the through the eye line of what is good and best for my customer, that'll drive you to excellence. I know, for example, in our industry, Darren, you know, a lot of the sponsor companies that we work with, they are centrally focused on meeting the need of a patient population that currently has an unmet or undermet need. And so they drive themselves every day to press forward into finding a treatment. And they're focused. I think of, a gentleman that we both know in San Diego who's the CEO of his own biotech. And he started the company because he's patient number one. He's looking for a treatment for himself and potentially his future children that may carry the gene that may lead into, and the treatments aren't sufficient. They aren't what they need to be. So he gets out of bed every morning with not just a customer centric focus, but a personal customer centric focus because he knows what the road that lies ahead. And I think if you're going to build anything with excellence, if you're going to build anything that is moves beyond just we're a standard excellence bearing company, every decision that you make about who you are as an organization, the SOPs you're going to put in place, the accountability you're going to hold people to, all of it should be focused and thought around from a foundation of who is our customer, what benefits them the most, how do we become customer obsessed so that as we drive forward, it leads you into greater innovation, it leads you into greater areas where you're able to accomplish more than the other companies on your left and your right, not because you're any smarter or anything else, but because you're obsessed with the end user and obsessed on what is going to be best for them. And I think when you filter things through that lens, excellence comes out on the other side, and it's received more easily by your audience because you purposely shaped it for them, you built it for them. And so I know for me, when somebody does something custom for me, I receive it a lot better than if it's just a generic item that's sent over to me and said, "Here you go, good luck." I don't know, Darren. It's something that really sticks out to me, when I'm thinking about it. So one of the things that I think, you are a one of the voices I listen to and have for years when it comes to building great organizations. We've talked about being customer focused. We've talked about being accountable. We've talked about, continuously having a focus on quality and improvement. I think those are all foundational. But, from an organizational perspective, have you seen anything else that really helps to build great culture when it comes to a focus on excellence?
I do. And in one word, it's passion, right? Any organization I've been a part of or have had the honor of leading, Sean, I'm always evaluating passion. First, my own, right? Because I can't give away something I don't have. So if I
Absolutely.
don't have passion, how can I share that with someone else? And let me define what passion is, right? I like to put them in two different buckets. First, there's passion and purpose, right? And purpose is almost like an outflow, Sean. Purpose is what I give the craft I've been called to, right? And in this case, it's helping global health, advancing
Mhm.
technology in life sciences. And that's the outflow, right? It's also what I give my family, what I give the communities I serve, how I serve humanity, right? That's the outflow.
Yep.
However, passion is what's reciprocated from those things I just mentioned. The spheres of influence that each of us operate in. None of us operate in a silo. We're not living in a remote island, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, right? We rely on each other in some form or fashion.
Yep.
And when I think about that, I think about passion. So I talked about the word convergence, but when my purpose meets my passion, that's where I see a really solid, viable culture happen, right? And it takes like average teams that are operating, perhaps they have incremental growth. It doesn't necessarily mean going to move their stock price, but there's an altruistic component. There is a deeper engagement when people can tie their purpose to a passion, that's what really accelerates
Yep.
technology advancements in our world. That's what
Yeah.
accelerates a cohesive team. That's what truly, truly, once again, fortifies culture. So I'm always evaluating my passion, right? Is the fire still burning for me? And if not, where is the bottleneck? And so
Yep.
I'm constantly having, again, people talk into my life, right? There's three letters that I live by, and that's FRE. And I do know how to spell, Sean. That's one letter short of the word free. But we here at Thorough Group operate in a feedback rich environment, right? So if I got some stinking thinking, right, because really, what you believe is what you're going to do. So what
Yep.
you believe about, you bring about, essentially,
Yep.
right? And sometimes if my beliefs aren't aligned with what I say, then I need people to utilize that feedback rich environment that I feel we've done a really good job at Thorough Group in building and cultivating.
That's so spot on. And I love what you said about, about making sure that you have that passion. Because I think at the end of the day, excellence, no matter who you are, if you don't have a passion for what you do, excellence will wane. You can carry it for a period of time, right? Anybody can do a great job. I think about, I ask my kids to do a chore around the house. If they're not passionate about it, they may do it well initially, but they're not going to, over the long term, be able to just out of their love for their great dad gonna just do an incredible job and build excellence. I mean, I would love to tell you that they would, but as passion wanes, so does excellence. They're tied together. But when your passion builds, and that's a great barometer for any of us to really take a step back and really ask, has my passion waned in the work that I'm doing? Sometimes it's just, we grow tired in doing things we love without seeing the results in the time we want, or you know people have left the organization for no fault of yours as a leader, no fault of yours as a person in the organization, and suddenly that passion that used to get you up early and you'd stay up late and you were dreaming about the future, and you begin to you're pushing the organization to greater levels of excellence, has begun to wane, not for anything other than just circumstances of life. And sometimes it's great for us to take a step back and figure out again at the core, where is it at? Because if we as leaders of an organization are not leading from the front when it comes to excellence, we're not leading from the front in the things we've talked about on the podcast today, we cannot in any way expect the organizational culture to follow us if that's not a part of who we are from the beginning. And so I think ultimately, I think it's a great takeaway, as we're thinking toward the end of our podcast today and our recording is, has your passion waned? Or truth on the other side of the coin, if it hasn't, what gets you up out of bed every day? What are you most passionate about your job? We'd love to hear in some of the comments and some of the things, what you're most passionate about when it comes to the work that you're doing, the company that you're building, the obsession you have for your customers on the other side that leads you to greater levels of excellence and quality in everything that you do. Darren, I think it'd be great for us to ask the listeners just to contribute a little bit in the comments section there on those areas.
Love it. Love it. Well, look, as we wrap up this episode, it's been great dialogue. You've really provoked some thoughts, Sean, some deep thoughts, and I have some good takeaways. I love your call to action about what gets you out of bed, what keeps you going when you're facing the headwinds, the challenges, the obstacles that inevitably we all do in business, right? And I think it's that resilience gene that should kick in at that point. Well, look, we have thoroughly enjoyed spending time with our listeners today. We encourage you to reach out should you have any additional questions. Certainly, you could find us on LinkedIn or at thethoroughgroup.com. And stay tuned for future episodes. And I'll tell you what, Sean, we wouldn't be able to do this if we could not work as one and win as one. We'll see you next episode.
Thank you for joining us today for another great episode of Thoroughly Thriving. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to share it with those in your world. If you'd like to learn more about the Thorough Group, please go to thoroughgroup.com. And remember that we will all remain thoroughly thriving if we continue to work as one and win as one.